House is resumed. Thank you, members.
Presentation of papers and of reports. Annual financial statement for the Ministry of Community Affairs, Gender and Housing, 2012-13 financial year, to be laid on the table by the Premier, the Honourable Minister of Home and Community Affairs.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual financial statements for the Ministry of Community Affairs, Gender and Housing for the 2012-2013 financial year and the Community Affairs financial statements for the Ministry of Home and Community Affairs for the year ending 30th of June 2014.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak to his reports?
Yes, Madam Speaker, briefly. Madam Speaker, in mid-November, I, along with the Deputy Governor and the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, announced good news regarding improvements that the Auditor General was reporting in the state of government accounts. At that time, I noted it reflected the enhanced quality of accounting work that is now being done in the Cayman Islands government. Although the announcement was met with some cynicism from some quarters, I believe then and now that the improvements reported augur well for government as we strive to provide the country with the quality of financial statements it deserves. I am pleased to say, Madam Speaker, that as I indicated to the country 2 weeks ago, there is more good news coming. At this sitting, we will be tabling some 16 financial statements, of which 12 or 75% are unqualified. 3 or 18.75% are qualified, and only one, a report from 2012, has a disclaimer opinion. Of the 2014 reports being tabled, I'm pleased to say that all 4 have an unqualified or qualified opinion, and 2 are showing an improved position versus the previous year's audits. And as the Deputy Governor previously indicated, and based on the Auditor General's remarks, the expectation is that we will continue to see ongoing improvements in the 2013-2014 financial statements. Mr. Swarbrick has been reported as saying that 2013-2014 could be the first government financial year without any adverse opinions or disclaimers qualifying the audit of government's finances. Indeed, just this week, the Auditor General's office advised my office that a total of 24 out of 42 entities are now signed off by his office. 16 are unqualified, 8 are qualified, and 2 are awaiting a resolution of matters that, once satisfied, should allow these to be recorded as qualified. That is not to say that all is now well with regard to our financial reporting. Minister of Finance, the Honourable Marco Archer, commented recently at the Professional Development Week that this government is striving for continuous improvement while being aware of the trade-off between absolute perfection by way of an unqualified opinion and the cost of achieving those opinions. But we will nonetheless strive for continuing improvements. It will take time, and I again repeat, because it is worth repeating, Madam Speaker, that the Auditor General has indicated to us that he is happy with the improved position and with the trend that he is seeing. I am also happy with this, as is my government. And, Madam Speaker, I believe the country as a whole can be happy that the position and the trend are improving. They will see further improvements by the next meeting of this Honourable House. But, Madam Speaker, I have been around long enough to know that no matter how well we do, there will be some who will find no pleasure in this announcement and complain. There is an increasing tendency for the pundits to be liberal with their criticism and careful with their praise, but that is par for the course. Today, I am proud to inform this House and the country that despite the naysayers, this government is doing its job and doing it well, as are the many public servants that work within the service. Honourable Ministers will speak to the reports as they are laid on the table this morning, Madam Speaker, but I will join with them in thanking the public servants who work long and hard to serve this country, but especially for working to ensure that our country improves its financial accounting practices. I also wish to thank the Auditor General and his office. I believe that we have established a good working relationship, and we look forward to this continuing. In the end, I believe that the Auditor General, the elected government, and all public servants have the same objective. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Children and Youth Services Foundation financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2011 to be laid on the table by the Premier, the Honourable Minister of Home and Community Affairs.
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements for the Children and Youth Services Foundation for the year ended 30th of June 2011.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Premier wish to speak to it?
No, Madam Speaker, what I said with respect to the first two is applicable to this one as well.
Report of the Standing Business Committee, third meeting of the 2014-15 session of the Legislative Assembly, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Home and Community Affairs, Chairman of the Standing Business Committee.
Honourable Premier.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the report of the Standing Business Committee of the Legislative Assembly of the Cayman Islands with respect to the third meeting of the 2014-2015 session of the Legislative Assembly.
So ordered. Would the Honourable Premier wish to speak to it?
No, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Government of the Cayman Islands, Cayman National Cultural Foundation annual financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2011. For the year ended 30th of June 2012, and for the year ended 30th of June 2013, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Health, Sports, Youth and Culture.
Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for culture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I'd like to lay these in one process.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the audit reports of the Cayman National Cultural Foundation for the fiscal years ended 30 June 2011, 30 June 2012, and 30 June 2013.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to his reports?
Yes, briefly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in assessing the reports, one will see that revenues have declined each year, especially the government grant, and losses were recorded each year as the foundation is dependent heavily on government for financing in order to survive. Total assets declined steadily from year to year from 5.1 million to 4.8 million to 4.6. How did they have this? From 5.1 million to 4.4 million over the 3 years. Also, the accumulated fund declined every year because of the losses incurred each year. The current liabilities contained large amounts that are owed to government for insurance coverage provided, which are mounting annually. The Auditor General requested that this liability should be resolved during the period ended June 30, 2014. Madam Speaker, in coming to his opinion on the Foundation's financial statements, the Auditor General relied on the work carried out by KPMG, who performed their work in accordance with international standards on auditing. The Auditor General issued, and this is a new term for all of us, an unmodified opinion on the Foundation's financial statements for each of the 3 years ending June 30, 2011, 2012, and 2013. The term unmodified opinion is the new term now used by the IAS, which is International Audited Standards, and it is synonymous with the previously used term unqualified opinion. So I guess we'll be hearing a lot more of it. It means that the information contained within the financial statements can be relied upon by the reader or user. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General stated that in his opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Foundation as at 30 June 2011, 2012, and 2013 respectively, and its financial performance and its cash flows for each of the years then ended in accordance with international public sector accounting standards. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General wrote that there was only one management letter point in relation to trade payables. He noted that the trade payables at June 30 for each year included amounts due to the Cayman Islands government with respect to insurance coverage provided to the Foundation. As the Foundation could not be in a position to repay this without sufficient appropriation from CIG, this payable may require reclassification to contributed capital. Although the amounts are not considered to be material in any of the 3 years, the payable is accumulating each year and is expected to become material during the year ended June 30, 2014. The Auditor General recommends that the Foundation concludes on the treatment of this item during the year ended June 30, 2014. Madam Speaker, I invite members of this Honorable House and the public to review this report in detail. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Government of the Cayman Islands, Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport, Annual Financial Statements for the year ended 30th of June 2014. To be laid on the table by the Honorable Minister of District Administration, Tourism and Transport.
I recognize the Honorable Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the audited financial statements of the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport for the fiscal year ended 30th of June 2014.
So ordered. Does the Honorable Deputy Premier wish to speak to it?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The audited financial statements show that the revenue for the year ended 30th of June 2014 was $27,815,000. There was a deficit of $1,751,000. The ministry had total assets equaling $13,416,000, resulting in a positive net worth of $11,587,000. Madam Speaker, this was a qualified audit opinion by the Auditor General, signed off on the 31st of October 2014. The Auditor General gave a qualified opinion on the financial statements as emphasis of matter and other matters. The Auditor General gave qualifications which formed the basis for this opinion and are listed on pages 5 and 6 of the document. The areas of qualifications are inventory, property, plant, and equipment, depreciation expense, trade payables, supplies and consumables, statement of cash flows, net worth. Madam Speaker, the Auditor General states, in my opinion, except for the possible effect of the matters described in the basis for qualified opinion. The financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport as of June 30th, 2014, and its financial performance for the year then ended in accordance with international public sector accounting standards. Madam Speaker, as you will note from the Auditor General's report, the ministry still has quite a bit of work to do in order to accomplish an unqualified audit opinion. However, there was a huge effort put in to achieve this qualified audit, and so I'm happy to take this opportunity to share the comments made by the Auditor General to the ministry as follows. I quote, "This is the first time that a ministry responsible for tourism or district administration has not received an adverse opinion or a disclaimer of opinion since the introduction of the Public Management and Finance Law, which is a notable step forward in accountability and is something which deserves to be marked. I would like to recognize that we have seen a significant change in the environment around this audit. The tone being set by management is very encouraging. The responsiveness of the Chief Financial Officer and her team and the effort they have put in to work with my team to deal with queries and get the job done has translated into the ability of my office to do an effective audit of the ministry. Whilst there have been challenges, the efforts by all are much appreciated. As ever, we must continue to move forward and strive for further improvement, but I think it is appropriate to take a minute to celebrate this improvement in the accountability for the use of public resources." End quote. Madam Speaker, I'm equally proud of the ministry's team led by the Chief Officer and the Chief Financial Officer for the great team effort which culminated in this milestone, a result that we should all be proud of. So I take this opportunity to thank the ministry staff, the Office of the Auditor General, for the hard work that has gone into producing the audited financial statements of the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism, and Transport for the fiscal year ended 30th of June, 2014. I now invite the members of this Honorable House and the public to review the reports in detail. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Government of the Cayman Islands, Portfolio of the Civil Service, Financial Statements for the year ended 30th of June 2014, to be laid on the table by the Honorable Deputy Governor, ex officio member responsible for the Portfolio of Civil Service.
Honorable Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honorable House the audited financial statements of the Portfolio of the Civil Service as at the 30th of June 2014.
So ordered. Does the Honorable Deputy Governor wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I shall offer a brief explanation of the components of the financial statements, and then I'll speak to the specifics of the financial statements as at the 30th of June 2014. The audited financial statements just tabled consists of the Statement of Financial Position, the Statement of Financial Performance, the Statement of Cash Flows, the Statement of Changes of Net Worth, and the notes to the financial statements. The Statement of Changes in Net Worth for the fiscal year ended the 30th of June 2014 indicate that the net assets of the Portfolio of the Civil Service increased by $541,000 or 52%. The majority of this increase is due to the transfer of 7 additional departments under the portfolio in July 2013. The net worth of the portfolio stood at just under CI 1.6 million as at the 30th of June 2014. Madam Speaker, in terms of the operating activity of the portfolio during the fiscal year ended the 30th of June 2014, the following summary is pertinent. The portfolio produced total revenue of CI $7.5 million. They incurred total expenses of CI $7.0 million, and they therefore generated a surplus in the amount of CI $507,000. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to advise members of the Honourable House that the Auditor General issued an unqualified opinion on the financial position of the Portfolio of the Civil Service as at the 30th of June 2014, and I would like to offer our congratulations to the Portfolio's Chief Officer, Mrs. Gloria McField Nixon, and her team for this positive audit result. I invite members to peruse the report in detail. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Information and Communication Technology Authority, financial statements 30th of June 2011, financial statements for 30th of June 2012, to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Planning, Land, Agriculture, Housing and Infrastructure.
Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for infrastructure.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I have 7 sets of statements to lay on the table. They are not all for the same entity. So would you prefer if I did them one by one, or I just name them all out one time?
Just name them all out one time.
Madam Speaker, thank you. And with your permission, I will ask to lay, it's okay, Madam Speaker. I will ask to lay on the table of this Honourable House the following 7 financial statements, and I will deal with them one by one. I beg to lay on the table the Information and Communications Technology Authority financial statements for June 30th, 2011, and for June 30th, 2012.
So ordered. Sarge. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to it?
Madam Speaker, the statements, the financial statements, all members have them and they are self-explanatory. So with your permission, I'll continue.
Please proceed.
I also, Madam Speaker, beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2013 for the National Housing Development Trust. Continuing on, Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2011 for the Electricity Regulatory Authority, and also for the year ended 30th of June 2012 for the Electricity Regulatory Authority. And then, Madam Speaker, I also beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements for year ending June 30th, 2013 for the National Roads Authority. And Madam Speaker, finally, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2012 for the then Ministry of District Administration, Works, Lands and Agriculture.
So ordered. For all of the reports that have been mentioned by the Honourable Minister, does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to any of these reports?
No, thank you, Madam Speaker. Just like the first ones, they're all self-explanatory.
Thank you.
Cayman Maritime Annual Report 2013-14 to be laid on the table by the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment.
Recognize the Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to lay
on the table of this Honorable House the 2013-14 annual report and related audited financial statements for the Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands for the financial year ended June 30th, 2014.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Minister wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just very briefly, Madam Speaker, the Maritime Authority has had a good record of having unqualified or unmodified audited financial statements. And I wish to note that the tabling of this annual report and the financial statements related thereto are both in accordance with the requirements of the Public Management and Finance Law time requirements. Madam Speaker, the good news in relation to the results for the Maritime Authority are in the details in the financial statements. I know this particular authority has been of particular interest to members of this Honourable House, certainly over the past year. So, in terms of highlighting the results for the 12-month period ending June 30th, 2014, the total operating revenue was $9,605,873 as compared to $8,859,677 for the previous financial year, which represents an 8.4% increase in revenue over that period. By comparison, total operating expenses were down from $9,146,394 to $8,681,202, which is a 5.3% reduction. Madam Speaker, the net result of these changes is that the net surplus for the financial year ended June 30th, 2014 was $782,671 compared to the loss in the previous period of $377,717. This represents, Madam Speaker, a swing or turnaround of $1,160,388 in the financial performance of the authority. And I'd like to note, Madam Speaker, that even perhaps the cynic would agree, looking at the outputs purchased by government, which has only increased by $175,000 between those two periods, that the difference in profits are quite significantly more and couldn't be attributed to that. Madam Speaker, the authority's total assets were $4,445,183 at June 30th, 2014, as compared to $3,583,921 as at June 30th, 2013, and this is a 24% increase in total asset value. Total liabilities were $1,442,957 as at June 30th, 2014, compared to $1,354,366 for the prior period, which represents a 6.5% increase. Total net worth of the authority has increased by 35%, moving from $3,012,226. From $2,229,555 to $3,012,226. So, Madam Speaker, in summary, these financial achievements have been very positive. They have culminated in an increase in the cash and cash equivalents for the authority from 2,172,356. Sorry, to 2,172,356 from 944,649 for the prior period, which is a very notable increase of 130%. This has certainly happened because the management and staff of the Maritime Authority have been doing a very good job, and I certainly commend them and offer congratulations. And it would be remiss of me not to mention the continued support and cooperation of the ship owners, yacht managers, other global partners, and the local private sector involvement, who have all made valuable contributions via the Cayman Islands Ship Owners Advisory Council, its associated yacht committee, and the local maritime sector consultative committee. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Report of the Standing Public Accounts Committee on the reports of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government. Key messages describing the framework, how core government manages resources, the accountability of SAGCs, and a survey of SAGC's governance. Report of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government, describing the framework, December 2013. Report of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government, how core government manages resources, December 2013. Report of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government, the accountability of statutory authorities and government companies, December 2013. Report of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government, a survey of statutory authorities and government company governance, December 2013. Report of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands government, key messages, December 2013, to be laid on the table by the second elected member for Georgetown, Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee.
I recognize the second elected member from the District of Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the report of the Standing Public Accounts Committee on the reports of the Office of the Auditor General on the governance in the Cayman Islands, comprising 5 reports. 1, describing the framework. 2, how core government manages resources. 3, the accountability of statutory authorities and government companies. 4th, a survey of statutory authorities and government companies' governance. And 5, key messages.
So ordered. Does the honourable member wish to speak to the reports?
Very briefly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Madam Speaker, the report from the Auditor General, the 5 reports comprising under the major heading of governance in the Cayman Islands governance, comprising the 5 reports, separate reports, are what I believe is one of the more important reports that we have seen from the Auditor General. Simply because, Madam Speaker, it really gives this House and the people of the Cayman Islands a snapshot and insight into the implementation of the principles of good governance within the public service. And I found it particularly, the committee found it particularly interesting reading, and I think the reports themselves actually make some very important recommendations from the Auditor General. And the committee itself also added a couple of recommendations of its own. So I really would like to commend the report to this Honourable House and to people, and encourage our members here to read that report as it has been tabled now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cayman Islands Government Annual HR Report 2012-13 to be laid on the table by the Deputy Governor, ex officio member responsible for the civil service.
I recognize Honourable Deputy Governor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to lay on the table of this Honourable House the annual HR reports for 2012-13 and, with your permission, also 2013-14.
So ordered. Does the Honourable Deputy Governor wish to speak to the two reports?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I shall offer a brief explanation of the components of the annual HR reports, and then I will speak more to the specifics of the 2012-13 and 2013-14 reports. The two annual HR reports that were just tabled contain key statistics and human resource trends within the civil service and the wider public service. The data covers the financial years of 2012-13 and 2013-14 as two separate reports produced within the portfolio of the civil service. Section 1 of each report provides information on the demographics of the public service as a whole as at the end of the respective financial years. Section 2 of each report provides information on the demographics of the core civil service as at the end of the respective financial years. And Section 3 of each report provides statistical information on the remuneration within the core civil service for the financial years, as well as the recruitment and retention trends within the particular years. Madam Speaker, with regards to both annual HR reports for those financial years 2012-13 and 2013-14, the following summary is pertinent. The core civil service headcount has fallen by 38 employees at the end of 2012-13 and a further 30 employees by the end of 2013-14. Between the 30th of June 2009 to the 30th of June 2014, the headcount for the core civil service has reduced by 185 employees. Despite a slight growth in the headcounts of the statutory authority and government-owned companies in 2013-14, the reducing core civil service has ensured an ongoing fall in the numbers for the entire public service. The core civil service continues to increase its percentage of Caymanian employees. In June 2009, 70.6% of the core civil service was Caymanian, which rose to 73.5% in June 2014, the highest percentage of Caymanians since January 2006. In addition, 45 out of the 65 government departments employed a higher percentage of Caymanians than the overall 73.5 average in June 2014. Of all the new appointments recorded in 2012-13 and the 2013 financial years, 66% were Caymanian in 2012-13, which rose to over 70% in 2013-14. In both reports, the figures show that Caymanians continue to be employed at a variety of levels. For example, Madam Speaker, 72% of organizational executive roles, which are highly graded posts, including chief officers, were Caymanian in June 2014. Caymanians were, however, also overrepresented at the lower grades, with 89% of employees within the bottom 3 salary scales being Caymanian in 2014. The average age within the core civil service continues to be 42 years old, and as at 30th of June 2014, 4.6% of civil servants were employed beyond the current normal retirement age of 60, a percentage that has remained fairly steady for the past 10 years. In June 2014, the gender split within the civil service was 54% women and 46% men. 53% of organizational executive roles, which includes chief officers, were women, with 47% being men. And a similar percentage split could be seen in management and operational roles, and it was only in the higher level specialist trade roles where men had a noticeably higher percentage of 97%. Considering the remuneration awarded within the core civil service, 76% of the service were employed with a base annual salary or wage of under CI $50,000 in June 2014. 82% of the service were employed at the midpoint of their salary grade or below, and 55% of all new appointments during the 2013-14 financial year were employed on point 1 of the appropriate salary scale. Finally, Madam Speaker, the figures show a current turnover figure for the core civil service to have risen from 11.4% during the 2012-13 financial year to 14.8% in 2013-14. However, these figures are likely to be more similar when summer interns are disregarded from those figures. In closing, Madam Speaker, I invite members to peruse the reports in detail. Thank you.
Questions to honourable ministers and members of the cabinet. The elected member for Northside to ask the Honourable Minister of Health, Sports, Youth and Culture. Question number 15.
I recognize the Honourable Premier to move the suspension of Standing Order 23, 7 and 8.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know that the member from Northside doesn't like us to suspend standing orders, but I hope he will forgive us in this instance since he has the first question. Madam Speaker, I beg the suspension of Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 to allow questions to be asked after the hour of 11 o'clock.
The question is that Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 be hereby suspended to allow questions to commence and continue after the hour of 11 a.m. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, Standing Order 23, 7 and 8 is accordingly suspended. I now recognize the member from Northside.
I can leave the Premier alone. All I have to say is, Madam Speaker, had we started on time, I am certain there would have been no need to suspend standing orders to complete questions. Madam Speaker, I beg to ask the Honourable Minister of Health the following question. Can the Honourable Minister say, has the ambulance services been outsourced to a private person or company? And if so, what are the terms of the contract?
Honourable Minister responsible for health.
Madam Speaker, the answer. The ambulance services at the Health Services Authority have not been outsourced to a private person or a company.
If there are no supplementaries, we'll move on to the next question. Member from Northside.
Madam Speaker, I wonder if the Minister of Health could say if there's been any change in the management relationship of the staff to the CEO of the HSA board, or if there's any changes in the method of remuneration for staff, i.e. fee for service.
Honourable Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just make sure I got that question right. If there were any changes to the fee. No, the answer to that, Madam Speaker, is no. The system as it relates to the questions are all the same. I'm not sure if there's anything else the members really looking to drive up, but there's no changes at this time.
Are there any further supplementary? If not, we'll move on to the next question.
The elected member for Northside to ask the Honourable Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment. Question number 16.
The Honourable Member from Northside.
Madam Speaker, I wish to ask the Honourable Minister responsible for Financial Services, Commerce and Environment the following question. Can the Honourable Minister state what are the salary ranges for the CEO of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority and the Cayman Islands Maritime Authority, and what authority establishes these salaries?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Financial Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The answer. In relation to the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, the salary scale for the authority's managing director is $160,000 to $229,818. The initial starting salary of the managing director is set by Cabinet upon appointment pursuant to Section 13(2) of the Monetary Authority law. The salary scales of the authority is set by the Board of Directors, who are charged with responsibility for the governance, policy, and performance of the authority and the general conduct of its affairs and business. pursuant to Section 11(1) of the Monetary Authority Law. In relation to the Maritime Authority, the salary scale for the Chief Executive Officer is $151,200 to $216,000. The initial starting salary of the CEO was originally set by Cabinet in 2004. Subsequent to this initial appointment and the coming into force of the Maritime Authority Law, the salary scales of the authority are set by the Board of Directors, who are charged with responsibility for the governance, policy, and performance of the authority and the general conduct of its affairs and business under Parts 2 and 3 of the Maritime Authority Law. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Are there any supplementaries? The member from Northside.
Through you to the Minister, Madam Speaker, can the Minister state whether there's any particular reason for such a wide range of salary? I mean, it will look like a 50,000 average range, and whether there are any bonuses paid in addition to the salary to either of these two executive officers.
Honourable Minister for Financial Services.
Madam Speaker, in relation to the supplementary question, I am not in a position to shed any light as to exactly why there is this difference. They were set, those scales were set some time ago. In terms of bonuses, in respect of the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, there is only a car allowance which is paid by the authority. There is no specific bonus provision as far as I'm aware. And in relation to the Maritime Authority, similarly, there is no bonus provision. Salary scales are simply reviewed by the board and adjusted upon the expiry of the contract term.
If there are no further supplementaries, we'll move on to the next question.
The elected member for East End to ask the Honourable Minister of Finance and Economic Development. Question number 17.
Honourable member from East End.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, question number 17, standing in my name is being directed and asked of the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. And it reads, can the Honourable Minister say what is the total value of the waivers of fees claimed to date by DART Realty or DECO in accordance with for Cayman Investment Alliance, FCIA agreement?
Honourable Minister responsible for Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the For Cayman Investment Alliance, or FCIA, partnership contains an agreement between the Cayman Islands government, the National Roads Authority, and DART Realty Cayman Limited. This agreement, commonly referred to as the NRA agreement, was executed on the 15th of December 2011 and extends concessions to DART Realty Cayman Limited and its affiliates on various fees, duties, and taxes levied by the Cayman Islands government. As of the 26th of November 2014, under the terms of the agreement, DART Realty Cayman Limited and its affiliates have claimed and have been granted waivers for various government fees totaling some $11,828,000 $219.26 Cayman Islands dollars, Madam Speaker. And the details of that figure are as follows. Is infrastructure fund fees, $3,119,098 Cayman Islands dollars. Affordable housing fees, $2,709,000 Cayman Islands dollars. Stamp duty, $2,437,461 Cayman Islands dollars. Building permit fees, $2,004,810 Cayman Islands dollars. Import duties, $1,261,076.96. Planning fees, $296,773.30, comprising a total, Madam Speaker, of $11,828,219.26 Cayman Islands dollars. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
If there are no supplementaries, member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, we're just sitting contemplating how to put all the questions, get them as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, first question I would like to ask the minister through you, ma'am, is it his understanding that these fees, these waiver, the cost of this waiver will be offset against the cost of the building of the road, the extension of Estella Tibbetts Highway?
Honorable Minister for Finance.
Madam Speaker, to the best of my understanding, and I would say I think that that is the case, but I have not had much negotiations with this. But I do believe that there is, yes, I do believe that that is the case, Madam Speaker, that there will be an offset. But I'm subject to correction.
Member from Easton.
Just needed that one on record. That's all right. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the minister can tell us if he has any expectations as to the amount that will come in addition to this. If there are any projections as to how much it would be eventually.
Honorable Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm unable to say as to the full extent of the duties and waivers and concessions that may be requested down the years.
Honorable Member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, there is such a thing as divine intervention. And I just want to thank the minister, because just last night we received an FOI from the planning department, and all the numbers say what the minister is saying here. Madam Speaker, I am wondering if the minister has considered whether or not there are any other fees that are due that has not yet been waived.
Honorable Minister for Finance.
Madam Speaker, I am not intimately familiar with the whole workings of the NRA agreement, so I'm not certain if there are any other fees that have been incurred by the DART organization which they have not yet claimed. It is a complex agreement, and I'm not that familiar with it. I haven't really had that much to do with the issues.
Recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, can the minister say whether he has any costs as to what the road took to build?
Honorable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have no clue as to what the road costs to build, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker,
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
so the government compiled these figures, but they didn't check to see what this claim was against, what kind of value this claim was against. Is that what the minister is saying?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm asking a question.
1 minute, please.
Somebody know?
Can we just have one on the floor at a time? The Honorable Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, the answer given was specific to the question, the parliamentary question that was asked, Madam Speaker. It asked for fees waived, not cost of roads built, so no assessment as to the two figures were done.
Honorable Member from Easton.
Is it up for you to ask him? I don't want to put him on the spot.
Member from Easton.
Madam Speaker, and I'm going to allow the minister, if he decides not to answer it, I'll accept that too. Can the minister
Member from Easton, I just want to make sure I'm following your train of thought. You're still going to ask the question even though you're going to be satisfied if you don't get an answer?
Yes, Madam Speaker, because the choice is his. And if he decides, as he has the right not to answer, I will accept that too, but I'll have it on record. Madam Speaker, can the minister tell us, considering what has transpired here over the last 3 months, with the waiving of planning fees, which I suspect he will eventually have under the amendment to the planning law. He will have that authority to waive fees. Can the minister tell this House and the people of this country whether or not, in his opinion, these fees were waived ultra vires of the then existing law?
Honorable Minister for Finance, as I understand it, a member from Easton is soliciting a legal opinion. If you feel that you have the locus standi to respond, please feel free. If not, you're not so obliged.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am unable to answer that question.
The Honorable Leader of the Opposition, followed by the member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Maybe the member can say, the minister can say, whether this was paid out as against the agreement.
Honorable Minister of Finance.
Or you just the premier demand everything?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the answer that I gave was in relation to the question that was posed, and the question asks what waivers, what is the total value of waivers? What is the total value of the waivers of fees claimed to date by Dart Realty or DECO in accordance with the FCIA agreement? So the figures that I have brought this morning and presented relate to the claims in the agreement. I would assume so. They don't come to me, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Easton. Do you want to give way to the first elected member from Bordentown? Recognize the honorable member, first elected member from Bordentown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I will preface this by, I think the entire House knows how I feel about these authorities. What I cannot understand is something of this magnitude. How could the National Roads Authority negotiate this? What expertise they had to arrive at that $11 million up to this stage? The NRA, what capacity does they have to negotiate for infrastructure fund fees, affordable housing fees, stamp duty, building permit fees, import duties, planning fees? Shouldn't be some other section or department in government doing the negotiation and not the NRA?
Honorable Minister for Finance, it's an important question. I recognize it doesn't necessarily fall under finance, but the minister responsible for NRA. But if you feel that you wish to respond, please so proceed.
Madam Speaker, I can offer nothing more than the answer within the question itself.
I recognize the honorable leader of the opposition.
Madam Speaker, can the minister say in putting his answer together whether he done any background checks to see just how many departments of government was involved, plus the National Roads Authority, in putting together the agreement?
Honorable Minister for Finance.
Madam Speaker, I can honestly say that I never investigated that far into it as to how many departments were involved in putting the answer together, because I only asked the ministry staff to provide me with the figures that pertain to the question, Madam Speaker.
Recognize a member from Easton. Member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the minister who has responsibility for the Cayman Islands government finance, can he tell us how much money he has allocated or managed to do housing for poor people, i.e. affordable housing to the Minister for Housing? How much money has been allocated to build homes in the affordable schemes?
Honorable Minister for Finance, unless he's asking, let me rephrase that.
Madam Speaker, I think I understand the question, Madam Speaker.
Just to say to Honorable Minister, you would answer only if you want to, because it's not relevant to the substantive question that has been put here. And I have been allowing some lateral with the supplementaries, but this is way out.
Madam Speaker, in response to the member from East End, Madam Speaker, as Minister for Finance, I deal with the issues at a high level Once the budget is completed, go through Finance Committee, and the funds are voted to the respective ministers, and those funds are managed by their respective chief officers and chief financial officers, Madam Speaker. I tend not to pay too much attention to the smaller figures within the ministries themselves. I can get that information from the budget document, but it's not something that I have on the tip of my finger. I wouldn't remember that, Madam Speaker. It's hundreds of figures within the budget document, so I'd have to look for that to provide it. Thank you.
If there are no more supplementaries, that concludes question time.
Would have been nice to have 2.7 million, you won't know, right?
Suspension of Standing Order 14.3 to enable the government business to have precedent over private member business, to be moved by the Premier, the Honourable Minister of Home and Community Affairs. Sorry. Statements by the Honourable Members and Ministers of the Cabinet.
Recognize the Honourable Minister responsible for culture.
I reckon it was the first time it happened. Yeah, for 30 years. Yeah, for 30 years. We wouldn't go on a road west if I hadn't done it.
Order.
You could build it for shopping centers, but you couldn't build it for the entire West Bay people.
Yeah, I didn't get it for the 400 down there.
No, you're right. You built it for the shopping center to go down. The friends.
At that time, the 400 should have.
Yes, I know.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, gives me great pleasure to rise to make a statement this early afternoon in this Honorable Legislative Assembly in relation to a matter that is very near and dear to my heart, the area of culture, and specifically the promotion and protection of our Caymanian heritage. Madam Speaker, since 2011, a group of volunteers has been organizing and promoting the celebration of Cayman Thanksgiving on the first Sunday in December to commemorate the official passage of the Atlantic hurricane season, which ends on 30 November. These efforts have continued to gain momentum as anyone who gives the concept of a Cayman Thanksgiving fair consideration is forced to acknowledge that there are few places in this world that have as much as we do as a community to be thankful for. Therefore, the setting aside of just one day per year, set against the backdrop of safely passing through another hurricane season, as we've just done, is a most fitting starting point for the celebration of Cayman Thanksgiving. 2014 is a significant year for the Cayman Islands as we mark 10 years since the passage of Hurricane Ivan and 5 years since the passage of Hurricane Paloma, two hurricanes whose force and devastation forever changed the Cayman Islands. Such was the magnitude of Hurricane Ivan that we in Grand Cayman now measure time as either pre-Ivan or post-Ivan. Madam Speaker, my colleagues in this honorable House may recall that following the passage of Hurricane Ivan, I was a vocal proponent for us having some form of annual commemoration or Thanksgiving to mark its passage. However, with Paloma being as devastating to the people of Cayman Brac as Ivan was to the island of Grand Cayman, I found myself thinking we would have to have two such commemorations. Well, Madam Speaker, I was more than delighted to learn of the efforts of this small group of Caymanians in 2011 who not only had the idea of creating a Cayman Thanksgiving, but who also created a grassroots movement to introduce and create a new tradition which could be celebrated by everyone who lives in the Cayman Islands. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to say that the government has taken the view that the time has come for this grassroots movement to take the next step on its journey to becoming established as part of Caymanian culture by receiving the full and open support of the government, by having the first Sunday in December officially recognized and included on community calendars as Cayman Thanksgiving. Madam Speaker, by celebrating Cayman Thanksgiving on the first Sunday in December each year, there is no requirement to create a public holiday on a weekday which would have an impact on the business community, employers, and schools. Sunday, for the most part, remains a day of rest in this community, and many families have their only family meal for the week together on a Sunday. So gathering together on the first Sunday in December for a meal with extended family and friends is an easy concept to grasp. Madam Speaker, I believe that Cayman Thanksgiving has many cultural benefits as families and friends are actively encouraged to gather together around the table to prepare a traditional Caymanian meal. Members of this honorable House will be aware that there are many efforts on the way to preserve Caymanian heritage and culture. These efforts have become ever more important and led by even more passionate individuals because we all recognize that what we have known as Caymanian heritage has the risk of disappearing if we do not take steps to preserve and promote it. One only has to open a newspaper on a Friday to count the number of elderly Caymanians each week who have left this world, taking with them knowledge and skills of various key aspects of our history and our very identity as Caymanians. It pains us all to our very core. Madam Speaker, many Caymanians cannot build a catboat, sing 4 traditional songs, plait a thatch hat or bag, or even identify unique characteristics of Caymanian architecture. It would be fair to say that because many Caymanians cannot do these things with relative ease, it leaves others, especially those who aren't from here and the uninitiated amongst us, to erroneously believe that we do not have any culture or real heritage of our own, and that there's nothing that is uniquely Caymanian. However, Madam Speaker, while I'm sure that my colleagues in this honorable House will agree that we know such statements are not true, and in fact have been the cause of many an argument, the one aspect of our heritage which Caymanians can speak to with relative confidence is our food. Most Caymanians of any age can relate what key ingredients or dishes would be part of a Caymanian meal, and we can easily distinguish what is Caymanian and what isn't. Therefore, I believe that including the preparation and sharing of a Caymanian meal as part of the celebration of Cayman Thanksgiving is a new way to preserve and pass on our culinary history and traditions. Cayman Thanksgiving is an invitation to younger generations and those who have made Cayman their home either temporarily or permanently to learn how to prepare a traditional Caymanian meal. Madam Speaker, our culinary traditions are so important to our identity as a people. No matter how modern and technologically advanced we become, for many of us, there will never be anything as delightful as a local heavy cake, a fish rundown, or dare I say, a pot of turtle stew. When we think of what our food means to the next generation, as a people, any of the members of this honorable House who have children who are away at school only have to think of the things our children beg us to cook for them upon their return to Cayman for school breaks and holidays. It is their way of reconnecting with their identity. Madam Speaker, I can attest to that because I better get the conchs and turtle ready. While I never had the honor of going to sea, I've heard many a story of Caymanian seamen who were fortunate enough to sail with a Caymanian cook. Oh, what a blessing that was for them. In many ways, Madam Speaker, I believe our food is synonymous with who we are as a people. I also believe, Madam Speaker, that Cayman Thanksgiving can be a simple means to start a new national conversation, bridging the generation gap and bringing families together to sit around a table and to discuss our food, culture, and heritage. Caymanians are also actively encouraged to invite a non-Caymanian into their home to introduce them to Caymanian culture and to share a Caymanian meal with them, and possibly teach them how to make it. One of the most sacred rituals in human existence is sitting together and enjoying fellowship over a meal, and I think that embodying this ritual into our Cayman Thanksgiving is an integral part of achieving its goals. From an agriculture perspective, Madam Speaker, a subject which I'm well aware is close to our heart, close to yours and close to the Minister of Planning and to some extent the Premier as well. Cayman Thanksgiving provides an additional boost to local farmers. A central theme of Cayman Thanksgiving meals is challenging us to use as much locally grown produce to prepare the meal. This concept has been taken up by many households as well as a growing number of Cayman Islands Tourism Association member restaurants who have produced Cayman-themed menus using locally grown produce for Cayman Thanksgiving. These local restaurants give visitors and those who choose not to cook on that day options to celebrate their Thanksgiving in a local restaurant while bringing local farmers closer to local restaurants. Madam Speaker, I ask members to pause for a moment and consider the predicament we would have been in if either Hurricanes Ivan or Paloma had incapacitated our air and seaports. We would be forced to survive off what was produced here. Madam Speaker, over the past 9 years, we have seen a true revival of the agricultural sector. While many people are still unaware of how much can actually be grown and produced in the Cayman Islands, we are seeing an increase in awareness, and I believe that Cayman Thanksgiving will help us in this area as well. With official recognition, Cayman Thanksgiving has the potential to become a major celebration centered around Caymanian culture for years to come, and something that is observed by families and friends across the community as it becomes a part of the national calendar. From a tourism perspective, Thanksgiving is the most popular holiday in both the United States and Canada, which are key tourism markets for the Cayman Islands. Visitors from these markets are obviously well aware of the significance of such a day, and Madam Speaker, I believe they will be intrigued by the opportunity to celebrate Thanksgiving Cayman style. Madam Speaker, I would like to briefly address any concerns that we are simply copying others. The truth of the matter is that many Caymanians have been celebrating American Thanksgiving for years, some without true knowledge of the reasons why Americans are celebrating. I take the view, Madam Speaker, that all traditions were born at some point in time, and Cayman Thanksgiving is as Caymanian as it gets. We as a community have been presented with an opportunity to create a new tradition which has real potential to be passed on to future generations of Caymanians. Madam Speaker, today is a good day for the Cayman Islands. It is also, by coincidence and pure coincidence, American Thanksgiving. While Cayman Thanksgiving has enjoyed the support of honorable members of this Legislative Assembly since its first year in 2011, the time has now come to have Cayman Thanksgiving fully recognized and affixed to our national calendar, albeit that this is not a public holiday. I am therefore happy to report to this honorable House that Cabinet has approved the official recognition of the first Sunday in December of each year as Cayman Thanksgiving to mark the official passage of the Atlantic hurricane season. Madam Speaker, a new tradition, one that celebrates all things Caymanian, has been born. In conclusion, I wish to thank members of the Cayman Thanksgiving Committee who have contributed over the past 4 years to share the concept with our beloved Isle Cayman. It is my earnest hope that with the support of this honorable House and the people of the Cayman Islands, Cayman Thanksgiving will be a part of the cultural legacy which will leave for future generations. Madam Speaker, it is my hope that next weekend we will have good reason to say happy Thanksgiving to each other and not just merely copy what someone else has done this week. It is my pleasure. Thank you.
Does that mean there'll be a discount on turtle meat?
I think there may come some suggestions from the floor, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Northside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In accordance with Standing Order 30, Suborder 2, I ask your permission to ask the Minister a couple of questions on his statement.
You may proceed with a maximum of 3 short questions.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wonder if the Minister would consider asking the government, in honor of Cayman Thanksgiving Day, to reduce the price of turtle meat for household consumption. And we could also place a limit of £10 per household or something like that, but only for household consumption, not for restaurant sale. And also whether he would invite the Premier to pardon a turtle for that day, which could create a new tourism tradition, because we could charge extra to see the pardoned turtles and it would take whisper off our back.
I'm sure the member meant to say release.
No, pardon, no release.
No, I know what a pardon means, but based on the fact of the difficulty we had with the international CITES, we don't want to think that our turtles have been incarcerated.
No, be pardon them, man. Put a crown on them with a Cayman so they can see it. Extra dollar to see that one.
Honorable Minister for Culture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member from Northside. Madam Speaker, I have been assured by the minister responsible for our good turtles that we have asked for a price reduction. We cannot dictate, but for a price reduction next week. Read a pardoning of the turtle. I will leave that to the goodly premier to respond. But I think it might well be a good gimmick. And that turtle will be safe.
If there are no further requests for questions under the standing order, Madam Clerk.
Suspension of Standing Order 14.3 to enable the government business to have precedent over the private member business. To be moved with the Premier, Honorable Minister of Home and Community Affairs.
I recognize the Honorable Premier.
Madam Speaker, as I indicated last night, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Order 14.3 to enable government business to have precedence over private members' business today, Thursday.
The question is that Standing Order 14.3 be suspended. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. The ayes have it. Standing Order 14.3 is accordingly suspended. We'll move on then to government business.
Government business bills, second readings. The Second-Hand Dealers Bill 2014.
Madam Speaker, in order to facilitate not just the business of the House, but outside business, which the Minister with responsibility for the first two bills listed that he has to deal with, I would like to move a motion that the summary jurisdiction amendment bill be dealt with in advance of the other two bills on the order paper. That way I can take that now and the minister can go about his business without losing more time in the House, because I expect that today is going to be a long day.
The question is that the summary jurisdiction amendment bill 2014 be taken at this stage, I suppose, as the second-hand dealers bill and the trade and business licensing bill. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against? The ayes have it. We'll now deal with the summary jurisdiction amendment bill once it's called by the clerk.
The Summary Jurisdiction Amendment Bill 2014.
Recognize the Honorable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move a bill, the second reading of a bill for a law to amend the Summary Jurisdiction Law 2006 revision to empower the Cabinet to make regulations providing for the training of justices of the peace and for incidental and connected purposes.
The bill has been duly moved. Does the mover wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we are all aware, the justices of the peace fulfill an important role. And although the office does confer a certain status, the position is not merely symbolic, but one involving important duties and responsibilities in, among other things, assisting to preserve the rule of law and to meet the public need for justice of the peace services. In line with other countries, the Cayman Islands has become more litigious in recent times, and decisions of public officials are being increasingly challenged in court and exposing the government to the risk of paying out huge sums by way of compensation. By the very nature of their role, they are requested, justices of the peace, are requested to make decisions that invariably impact civil liberties and fundamental human rights. One moment, Madam Speaker, if I may have your indulgence. They issue warrants, summonses, remand persons in custody or bail, preside over youth courts, and a range of other duties. All of these are very important functions and are invariably contentious. The recent adoption by the Cayman Islands of the Bill of Rights in the Cayman Islands Constitution 2009 has put additional pressures on public servants, including justices of the peace, to ensure that decisions made are lawful, proportionate, and procedurally fair and transparent. I would like to recognize the Deputy Governor and his staff for his leadership that has brought this bill to fruition. And in addition, I would like to acknowledge the work of the Justices of the Peace Association and the Honorable Chief Justice Anthony Smelly, QC, in developing the new draft regulations. Madam Speaker, the current summary jurisdiction law only briefly covers the appointment and removal of justices of the peace by the governor. The amendment which is being proposed to the law does not change that responsibility. However, the current law does not provide for the making of regulations, which in the context of modern drafting are appropriate to further clarify the working of the primary law. Accordingly, this amendment will allow Cabinet to make regulations with regard to justices of the peace. The regulations will contain some of the much-needed guidance for justices of the peace in the execution of the office. Madam Speaker, the Cabinet decided that in light of recent court challenges to the issues of warrants by justices of the peace, that to mitigate further legal exposure and resulting liability to government, regulations needed to be put in place and a training program introduced. The training of justices of the peace is neither new or unique to Cayman. Indeed, in some countries, they have to undergo a significant period of training prior to being sworn in. The Deputy Governor's Office organized the training of approximately 136 new and existing justices of the peace in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac between January and April, I believe, of this year. And a new training manual has been developed and issued to all who attended the sessions. The draft regulations, which have been developed in conjunction with the Learned Chief Justice, the Judicial Department, and others, once brought into effect, will cover the following areas as touched on in the various clauses of the bill. It will provide, Madam Speaker, for criteria for the nomination of an individual to be a justice of the peace in the first instance. It will provide that all nominees should have no criminal record, have a sufficient level of literacy in English, and have demonstrated the ability to make good judgments. Additionally, the regulations will set out the nomination process for becoming a justice of the peace. Nominations for persons to be appointed as justices of the peace will only be accepted from registered voters. The nomination form will have to be accompanied by a reference letter from 2 referees who must be registered voters or have been resident in the islands for at least 10 years. The clerk of the court will forward copies of the nomination form and the attachments to the Chief Justice, the President of the Justices of the Peace Association, and the Attorney General for comments. The clerk of the court will also carry out a due diligence exercise and background check on the nominee, including requesting a police report. The clerk of court will interview the nominee, explaining the duties and responsibilities of the role of a justice of the peace. If the nominee is deemed suitable, the Chief Justice will approve the nominee to participate in a training program. Following the nominee's completion of the training, the Chief Justice will send all documentation to the Governor with a recommendation. The next step will be the appointment process and will include the following. The Governor, having considered the comments of the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the Justices of the Peace Association, and having received confirmation that the prescribed training course has been satisfactorily undertaken, may make the appointment. On receipt of the instrument of appointment, the clerk of court will arrange to swear in the new justice of the peace, including administering of the oath of allegiance and judicial oath. Once the oath has been administered, the clerk of the court will inform the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the Justices of the Peace Association and arrange for the name to be added to the roll of justices for publication of the appointment in the Gazette. An official stamp will be provided for use on all documents where appropriate. Madam Speaker, it is also contemplated that there will be a code of conduct for justices of the peace. Again, something that will not be unique to the Cayman Islands. The justices of the peace will be expected to observe the code of conduct, as failure to do so may result in their removal from the role of justices. The code will include the following. A justice of the peace must not unreasonably refuse to provide justice of the peace services and must treat all persons seeking such services with courtesy, dignity, and respect. A justice of the peace, understandably, should not engage in unlawful activities nor conduct themselves in such a manner as to bring the office into disrepute. A justice of the peace must keep safe and must not reveal information which is private, confidential, or commercially sensitive, and which the justice of the peace has obtained in the course of providing justice of the peace services unless authorized by law. A justice of the peace will be expected to remain independent and impartial when providing justice of the peace services. If a justice of the peace has a personal, family, financial, or business interest in a matter in which he will be required to act, the justice of the peace must disclose the interest to the person seeking justice of the peace services or decline to provide the services with respect to that matter. A justice of the peace is not permitted to charge a fee or accept a gift for providing justice of the peace services. Madam Speaker, I do not think any of these are unduly restrictive or onerous, and that some of the obvious attributes and are some of the obvious attributes that we would expect of our justice of the peace, given the nature of their office and their public profile. Madam Speaker, the draft regulations contemplated will also prescribe a process for dismissal, suspension, or resignation of a justice of the peace. By way of example, to dismiss a justice of the peace, the governor will establish a tribunal chaired by the Chief Justice or a Grand Court judge as designated to conduct a hearing. The governor may suspend a justice of the peace who is charged with a serious offense that carries a penalty of imprisonment or may bring the office into disrepute, pending the outcome of the court case. If the justice of the peace on retirement has served for a minimum of 10 years, he or she may request to retain the justice of the peace designation with the addition of retired in brackets following the designation. Once retired, the justice of the peace will have no authority to continue to witness documents or issue warrants or any of the other functions and authority which a substantive justice of the peace will have. There is, Madam Speaker, no upper limit in terms of age with respect to being a justice of the peace. But from time to time, justices of the peace find that they are no longer willing or able to carry out those duties. So this change to the law will allow them to continue to have the designation of JP in an honorary capacity, indicated by the use of retired following the JP designation. JPs will be encouraged and expected to keep a written record of most, if not all, encounters, including signatures witnessed, land transfers witnessed, warrants issued, and all occasions when justice of the peace services are refused, giving reasons on the prescribed form. Additionally, Madam Speaker, as to be expected, in the unlikely event a JP is accused of misconduct, there should be clear procedures for dealing with such complaints. Accordingly, the regulations will set out a complaints procedure. Any person will be able to make a complaint about the conduct of a justice of the peace to the clerk of the court. If the complaint is not frivolous or vexatious, the clerk of the court should bring the complaint to the attention of the justice of the peace concerned for him or her to respond. The complaint and the response from the justice of the peace shall be forwarded to the Attorney General with a recommendation of whether an inquiry is necessary. If the Attorney General advises the Governor that an inquiry is necessary and the Governor agrees with the recommendation, the Governor may ask the Chief Justice to chair a tribunal which will also include 2 Justices of the Peace nominated by the Justices of the Peace Association. The chair of the tribunal will submit a report and recommendation to the Governor following the hearing. Madam Speaker, I am confident that the new regulations will further enhance the important roles that our Justices of the Peace play in the justice system, and more generally, I am looking for the support of all members of this Honourable House to pass the amendment to the summary jurisdiction law to allow for the draft regulations to be formalized. The regulations, once promulgated, will help to further engender respect and confidence in the work of Justices of the Peace. It will increase public confidence that a Justice of the Peace is adhering to the appropriate professional standard as well as ethical traditions expected of that ancient office. It will help to further explain and clarify the role of the Justice of the Peace, and therefore help to reduce mistakes because they will serve to provide clear guidance in the provision of Justice of the Peace services. Madam Speaker, the final provisions of the bill that I would like to touch on briefly are those dealing with the ability of those persons who are appointed as Justices of the Peace by virtue of office, virtue officii, to be able to retain the title following their retirement, provided, of course, that they continue to be deemed fit and proper to continue in that office and that they are Caymanian. These public officers, Madam Speaker, are appointed by the Governor pursuant to Section 7.3 of the Summary Jurisdiction Law. The offices covered include that of the Chief Justice and judges of the Grand Court, magistrates, the Clerk of the Court, the Deputy Clerk of the Courts, and a number of others. There is no good reason why such persons who already have such vast working knowledge of the law should not be able to continue to provide their services as Justice of the Peace upon retirement from office, provided they are otherwise fit and willing to do so and are Caymanian. The government has therefore decided that the law should be amended to allow them to retain the title in the circumstances outlined above. Finally, Madam Speaker, it is only appropriate that I take this opportunity to publicly acknowledge the excellent work our Justices of the Peace continue to perform, and which often goes without notice until there is a problem. I wish to pay tribute to the Justices of the Peace Association, including their current president, Mr. Albert Anderson, past presidents, Mr. Harding Watler, Ms. Deborah Humphrey, and others. Madam Speaker, our Justices of the Peace deserve not just our thanks, but also our continuing support and encouragement. And I invite all honorable members of this House to give support to the proposed amending bill. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Does any other member wish to speak? I recognize the member from Easton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was trying to get some information from the office, but and as I guess I can postpone that side of it. And what it was, Madam Speaker, was that recently we had an amendment to the notary's law, notary's public law, and it's nowhere available. So that's what I'm trying to get. Nevertheless, Madam Speaker,
Member from Easton, lunch is on its way. It should be here within the next 5 minutes. Perhaps we can take a luncheon break, and your information is being looked for at the time. Unless there's a strong objection to that, we'll take the luncheon break now and reconvene at 2 p.m.